seated.
Sisti, whenever you're ready, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. I got a few things to say. That doesn't surprise me. Let me say that was quite an opening. Interesting. Barely touches on what took place on April 4th, 2024. It touches it. Let me start by saying just a few things, okay? Let me lay it down here for you in a very basic, common sense, everybody knows fashion. You know, there's a saying that goes around, it goes around in New Hampshire quite a bit. You don't mess with a mama bear's cubs. You ever hear that? It's bad news if you do that. Let me tell you something else you don't do. You don't mess with a father's daughter's life. You don't threaten a father's daughter's life. You don't threaten a son's elderly parents. And you don't threaten Jason. And even Kyle should have known that. And you know what? He did know that. But what was Kyle? What was Kyle? Kyle was a man who had a heart that was full of hate. He had a brain that was bathed in rage. And he had a mouth that was spewing venom on the evening of April 4th, 2024. And to sugarcoat what went on that evening, a little after 10 o'clock p.m., and say it was a petty, conditional threat is the understatement of this decade. What happened that night, ladies and gentlemen, I will give you some background. I will tell you what happened. And you will understand why somebody like Jason, protecting himself, his daughter, and his family, was pushed into a position where he reasonably believed that serious bodily injury or death was about to take place. And when that happens in this state, folks, the judge is going to tell you, you get to use deadly force. And that's exactly what Jason did. Kyle got what he deserved. And any reasonable human being that acted like Kyle should have expected to get the same. Should have expected to get the same. And anybody in the position that Jason Levesque was in can certainly utilize deadly force. You do not, ladies and gentlemen, have to stand back and wait for a screwdriver to get stuck inside you, or a sucker punch to the throat, or who knows what's in his pocket, to decide that you're going to use a firearm. That's not the rule. Never has been in this state. Never will be. You know, we all reasonably believe that we know what's going on in the cool, quiet confines, hours or days or months away from an event. But this happened in seconds. This happened quickly. This happened where you don't get to roll it over in your mind. This happened where you don't get to frisk his pants and see if he has something in it. or his jacket. This happens, and it happened that night, when a raging maniac, out of nowhere and for no good reason, was threatening the life of Jason and his family. Now that's the context that we're talking about. Not some petty, conditional threat. We're talking about a death threat. And when you reasonably believe that somebody is talking serious to you, you get to react serious. And that's the law. That is the law. Whether it be 1 bullet, 6 bullets, or 20 bullets, you get to utilize them. I'll give you a little aside, by the way. Kyle wasn't straight with the police. Kyle wasn't straight with the police. The police and the prosecution have been hoodwinked by him. He didn't tell them, hey, I angrily confronted Jason Levesque.
Object. Objection.
What the prosecutor said about Jason and what he heard, you heard a lot more. You heard a lot more. Kyle didn't say that he was going to fucking kill Jason's family. I want you at the end of this case to see who was straight and who wasn't straight. Okay? That's for you folks to judge. And you're going to judge the night of April 4th, 2024 on the videos and on the testimony. But let me tell you about that night. Let me tell you about the 24 hours before this took place. The 24 hours before this took place, Jason Levesque was working hard, 24 hours in a row, plowing snow, hitting all of his accounts in Rochester over and over again. It was a continuous snowstorm, cycling through and clearing all night long, and all day long, working hard. The last thing he ever wanted to do was have a confrontation with an enraged maniac coming out of his house. And you're going to see the video. It's not some calm guy strolling over to Jason Levesque saying, please, don't put snow on my driveway. That's not what you're going to see. You're going to see Jason Levesque finally getting home after 24 hours, finally trying to get inside the house with the daughter that he's raised, finally trying to get inside the house where his elderly parents lived, and by the way, where his 5-year-old nephew was that night, so that he could finally get some sleep after working for 24 hours. You're going to see Jason Levesque get out of his truck after making a couple of moves with the plow. And this is kind of important, like real important, because you're going to see the driveway, Kyle's driveway, unmolested by Jason. Jason didn't dump one flake of snow on Kyle's driveway. Not one. Nothing. You're going to see Kyle quickly moving out of his apartment, his residence, and be the initial aggressor in this entire scenario. He wanted nothing to do with him, and he didn't even see him coming. Jason's minding his own business. Jason's there with his daughter. Jason's there with his daughter that was also working that night. Jason's trying to get his daughter safely back into the house when an enraged individual, unannounced for no reason, comes right up to Jason. And folks, the description of face-to-face doesn't even get close. Kyle literally, when you see this video, Kyle literally sticks his nose right into the cheek of Jason. And we contend as he's doing that, as he is having actual physical contact, you say face to face, how about face on face that he initiated? Is threatening his life, threatening his daughter's life, threatening his family's life. He doesn't even know why. Jason hasn't done anything. And you're going to see that he hasn't done anything. The one thing on that video that is crystal clear is that Jason's done nothing. Nothing. Nothing to even deserve a "I'm going to fucking kill your family," like the prosecutor said. Not even that. But quite frankly, you'd interpret it, and any reasonable person would interpret, that Kyle was out of his mind. That he was acting beyond stupid. That you couldn't predict what he was going to do, because the initial act itself was unpredictable. It was without reason. There's no foundation for what he was doing. Screaming and threatening when Jason did nothing. Nothing. Nothing worthy of a complaint. But instead of a complaint, a death threat. That's what you're getting. That's what starts all this. But it just doesn't end. Now, is it a quick event? Yeah, it's a quick event. Is it a violent event? Of course it's a violent event. That's what we're doing here. Who started? I'm going to ask you at the end of this case. Who was the initial aggressor? Who threatened the life of another individual? Who could reasonably believe that the threat could have been actually executed, carried out, where serious bodily injury could have taken place, or death? Can you come to the conclusion that deadly force was utilized reasonably? Yes. But the interesting question, and the legal question that's going to be placed before you, is that can the prosecution eliminate self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt? That means, can you, after placing yourself or somebody in the position that Jason was in, eliminate beyond a reasonable doubt the need for deadly force? I'm going to ask you at the end of this case to answer that question. And I'm going to ask you to say, no way did they disprove beyond a reasonable doubt that self-defense should not have been utilized. You know, nobody wants to be in that position that Jason was in. Nobody wants to be in a position where you have to use lethal force. Nobody. But you do get pushed up against the wall sometimes. And that's what happened in Rochester last year. And when he got up in the morning on the 23rd of October and was called into work to go over and over and over and plow for hour after hour after hour, he never, ever expected anything like that tirade that took place that evening. It's inexcusable. Was Kyle shot? Was he shot multiple times? Were there heroic medical procedures that were pursued? Yes, there were. That's not the case. That's not the prosecution's main point. I'll give you a little aside. Maybe you didn't hear. I'm hoping. If Jason wanted to kill him, he could have. A little fun fact for you. He had another magazine with him. He could have just popped it in the 9mm and emptied that to him. He didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't try to escape. He stayed right there in the driveway of his own home, waiting for the police to arrive. No attempt to evade at all. That's a fact. And you're going to find that fact. We don't have to sit around and imagine evasion of the police, or attempting to escape, because it never happened. Waited for the police, took the firearm, kept it inside the truck. When he saw the police, he got out of the truck, cooperated 100% with them. Told them where the firearm was, went to the police station. Evading the police? I mean, I would argue that he was still in shock, but he sure wasn't evading the police. That's a heck of a lot of 15 seconds of activity that he just went through. Evading the police? He went to the police station. He sat down with the police. Did he lawyer up? Did he say, I'm not going to talk to you, I want a lawyer? No. Did he go through a long discussion with him? Yeah. And let me give you another little side fact. He offered his video film from his cameras to the police. Yeah. This guy, the video film we're talking about, he offered it to the police. It wasn't some grand investigation going on. And he spoke to him. And he told him he was threatened. And he told him that his family was threatened. And he told him that he shot Kyle. He told him all those things. And was he scared? Yep. And was it Kyle's intent to scare the hell out of him? Yep. And did Kyle succeed in doing that? Yep. And did Kyle succeed in convincing him that he was in danger? Yep. I'm going to ask you to imagine at the end of this case, going home after a long day's work, and out of nowhere, having somebody confront you, screaming and enraged, and threatening your family, out of nowhere. And I'm going to ask you at the end of this case, just how long your blood pressure and your heart rate would be elevated after that. And what was going on in your head after that. And how you would react after that. Because that's what it comes down to. Because the true test, when we get down to self-defense, has to do with reasonableness. And it's an interesting instruction you're going to get. I'll give you some of that. The judge is going to give it all. Did Jason actually believe that the other person was about to use unlawful, deadly force against him? Now let me just stop there. If somebody says they're going to kill you and kill your family, you can come to that conclusion. Did he actually believe? Did he actually believe that he was in danger of death or serious bodily injury? Roll that over. There's some interesting aspects of self-defense. And it can't be analyzed, like I said, in some Spartan lab after the fact. It has to be analyzed as if you're living through the same events as the individual that is asserting the self-defense. So you got to live in the shoes of Jason Levesque. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those. Cooperated with the police. And yet, his path was different than a medical path. There's no question. His path is one of defending himself in a court of law and forcing the prosecution to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And he has no burden. We all know that. He doesn't have to produce anything. We know that. But as we move through the case, you'll see things will be produced on the part of Jason Levesque. Now the videos, they're not going to tell the whole story. I'm afraid we don't have a beginning to the end. And I'm afraid that you don't have audio, because I wish you did. If you had audio, I would assert you would have heard multiple threats from Kyle against Jason. That he turned back more than once and threatened to kill him and his daughter. If you had audio, that would have been a really great gift for you. You would have understood it even better. But you can just imagine and reasonably come to the conclusion that Kyle didn't just turn around and walk back to his house and tuck himself in for the evening. He just couldn't give up on Jason. He'd walk back, he'd turn around, he'd shout out some more threats. Turn around, walk back, shout out some more threats. Taunting, threatening, continuously. That's what Jason was here. It wasn't a good night. It was terrible. Terrible night for both of us. Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in some of this stuff. I understand the magical medical procedures. Understand the life-threatening wounds. Understand all of that. That goes with this turf. But in the end, the bottom line is going to have to be this. As the prosecution disproved self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. And as you go through this trial, I'm going to ask you to filter that, all the facts through that legal principle. Filter it. And ask yourself, if and when Kyle takes the stand, do you trust him? Do you trust him? Is he giving you the full story? Or is he giving you the petty little argument that was referred to in opening? pay particular attention to all of the circumstances in this case. Because if you do, at the end of this case, you will come to the ultimate conclusion. You will come to the ultimate conclusion that Jason Levesque acted in self-defense. That a reasonable person in his position would have perceived that he was in danger of death or serious bodily injury. So again, thank you for sitting in on this. You're going to see graphic images. You're going to see medical stuff. You're going to see all kinds of stuff in this case. But please keep an open mind. I'm begging you. Because if you keep an open mind, you're going to give us a just result. The just result in this case is going to be not guilty. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel.
I'd like to approach Your Honor.
Yes, please.